Hello. Thought we'd talk about 2 Kings 20 just a little bit. 2 Kings 20, it's actually a story about Hezekiah. Now, Hezekiah is not a book in the Old Testament, but very often people think it is. If you got one of those, which one of these is not kind of questions, and you threw in Zephaniah and Obadiah and Hezekiah, you might struggle with that. But Hezekiah is actually a king of Judah. Now, remember, Israel is the northern kingdom after they split after the death of Solomon under Rehoboam and Jeroboam. And Judah is the southern kingdom. So yesterday we were talking about Ahab and Elijah and Jezebel and the prophets of Baal and all of that. Well, that was in Israel, the northern kingdom. Judah's the southern kingdom, and Hezekiah. And Hezekiah's actually a pretty good king, considering he was not great, but pretty good. Very few of them, I would say, were great, if any. But he tried to do the right things. Now, this is paralleled in Isaiah chapter 38. The prophet Isaiah. Let me pause here and give you a little side note. You say, why Hezekiah, Zephaniah, Obadiah, all these people? You may not know that the suffix IAH, the ending of a name IAH, has to do with honoring God. IAH. So that's why there's so many names that Ayahs with the N. IAH ending something to do with honoring God. The same way IEL is that way, like Daniel, Othniel. Right? IEL is the same way, judged or given a task by God. So IAH. And so, but this story is parallel in Isaiah chapter 38, about 700-ish, depending on which commentary you read, 700 or so years before Jesus. And so it's pretty far back. Get a little sip of coffee there. That's good. Trader Joe's Ethiopian blend. Very good K-Cup. Trader Joe's Ethiopian blend. And also less plastic, so less harm on the environment. So a little minimal footprint there. So 700-ish years before Jesus, this takes place. And the northern kingdom of Israel has been invaded and conquered by Assyria under Sennacherib, and that's a whole other deal. But Assyria has taken them over, and they have moved down and are starting to conquer Judah. Now, Judah's not much of a power at this point. They are in sort of a struggling up-and-comer and never have survived, really, the divided kingdom. Now, obviously, Israel didn't either. Divided house is not going to stand. So both kingdoms became weaker when they split. And so now Assyria has taken the northern part of Judah, but hasn't quite conquered Jerusalem, and they're going to kind of lay siege against that, and that's the things that are going on. Hezekiah becomes sick. He has some kind of abscess, maybe a boil of some kind that's become infected. Now, this is way before antibiotics and shots, and you can't run to private care and get this taken care of, and so he has become he's got an abscess and it's infected, and he is going to die. Isaiah is sent to tell him that you're going to die. And he goes in and tells him that. A message from God. He is leaving, and as he's leaving, Hezekiah turns towards the wall and prays to himself, which is kind of, I think it's interesting. The scripture points that out. He's praying to God by himself. He's not saying, hey, prophet, can you pray for me while you're here? Can you bring in my spiritual leaders, whatever it might be? No, he prays himself. And before Isaiah makes it all the way out of the palace, God sends him back to tell Hezekiah he's going to get 15 more years to live. 15 more years to live. Now, that's pretty awesome in a couple ways. One, you get 15 more years, you're not going to die right now, which is pretty awesome, pretty powerful. But also, you may not agree with this, but that he knows when he's going to die, which you go, ooh, I don't like that at all. But that allows you to know this is how much time I have left. You know, this is the things that are, I know I've got 15 years. And so get busy. And so just depending on how you look at it, but to me, saying, man, that's pretty good stuff. Now, why 15 years? I kind of lean towards the school of thought this is symbolic. No, he got an actual 15 years, but it's also symbolic of Jerusalem's recovery. they are going to withstand the charge of the Assyrians because of God. They're going to rebuild some things, some fortifications. They're going to kind of clean things up, kind of get organized. They're going to kind of leave the kingdom in a good spot. And Hezekiah, the one good thing he did was kind of lean that direction. Like, I've got 15 years to do some great things. Let's win this battle, kind of get my people back on board and get the kingdom heading the right direction and kind of leaving a legacy. So he really got 15 years to kind of set his house in order. Now, he did that in some ways, but in other ways he didn't. And it was almost like, God, if you'll bail me out of this, I'll follow you. I'll do everything I can. And as soon as God gets him out of the death jail, he follows him a little ways, but quickly forgets. And I think we do the same things. We get in tough spots and we pray to God, help us out, help us out, help us out. Maybe even after this pandemic, we all say, man, how much more I'm going to appreciate things. And maybe we will, but I hope that lasts. Are we going to get right back into a routine, or right back, and for you all heading off to college and different parts of life and that kind of thing, will you head right back into taking things for granted that they're right there? Well, I'm kind of noticing things I've taken for granted for so long. And so he was kind of supposed to set his house in order, and he did somewhat, but then he struggled. Now, he asked for a sign for those 15 years, a sign. He said, Isaiah, is there going to be a sign that I know that God's going to do what he's going to do? Which made seem really odd. But again, it's not like he had a countdown timer. It's like, yeah, 15 years. Oh, I was just kidding. It's just 5 minutes. No. He wanted a sign, and God gave him one. And that sign was he was going to make the shadow go backwards on the sundial, on the steps. They're going to go backwards. It's going to move backwards. So as the shadow is supposed to move a certain way, because the sun's going down, that is actually going to move backwards. I don't know that the sun went backwards or the earth quit spinning. I think God just made the shadow, that's just my opinion, go backwards. But that was his sign that this is going to take place. And so he's renewed. Now, they did make a poultice of figs to place on. Isaiah made a poultice of figs, or had it made to place on the boil to bring the infection out. That does not mean it was not a miracle. God can use medicines and things these days. All healing comes from God. The coronavirus, the COVID-19, and all these things, healing will come from God. The power is through man. People are researching it and these kind of things, and it doesn't mean God doesn't use those kind of things and everyday people to solve problems in his kingdom. But they do place a poultice of figs, sucks the abscess out. Gross, I know. And he is healed. Now, but he gets the sign of the shadow moving backwards. Sometimes we want a sign from God, and maybe God says something like, God says, I love you. God is love. And to know him is to know the light and not walk in the darkness. God is love. I love you, God says. You say, well, how do we know that you love us? Well, he sent Jesus Christ. This is Holy Week. Tuesday of Holy Week, with different days of silence. May it depend on, I won't get all into when the trial took place and do all that, but Easter is Sunday. Jesus Christ is our sign. I love you. How do we know? I sent my son to die for your sins and raised him from the dead. And that's what we celebrate on Sunday, the resurrection, of course, end of this week. And so that's our sign. Now, not long after Hezekiah is healed, it's good. Some envoys are sent. Envoys are sent from Babylon. Now, Babylon was kind of they're kind of a Division I superpower. They're not Power 5 conference, but they're definitely D1 and moving on up. They are climbing into the rankings as a superpower. Judah, as I mentioned, is not. Now, Assyria was definitely a superpower. They're a Power 5 conference kind of thing. And Judah had defeated them, driven them back, had withstood their charge. So Babylon's like, maybe we need to make friends with Judah and figure out and kind of ally with them and kind of offer them some of the things we have. And so they sent envoys to Hezekiah to basically congratulate him on on what he has done in the battle and the fact that he is still alive, because they had heard he was about to die. And so they show up, and Hezekiah's greatest sin, or his main sin, is pride. He gets so full of, look at all the things that I have. Yes, we won the big battle. Look at my kingdom. Look at the gold we have. And he shows Babylon everything. It's basically, he shows them everything he's got. And again, not to be too sporty, but it's kind of like if somebody calls it, we beat a big team, we upset a big team in football. Somebody else, some other opponent down the road says, hey, dude, that is so awesome. Can you share your film with me? Well, sure. Everybody does that. But what you don't want to do is, here's our thinking, and here's our game plan, and here's the defense we run, and here's the offense, and here's why we ran this, and here's our whole scheme. Because you're going to have to turn around and play that team later. Well, now they know everything that you know. You've given them everything. And Hezekiah did that. And he gave everything to the Babylonians, which was just foolish. His pride, he just kept saying, here's what we did, and here's what we're doing, and here's our fortifications, and here's how we're, if you attacked us. And so Isaiah comes back to him and says, you foolish man, Jerusalem's going to be destroyed by these people, because you've just given them every reason to come steal all your gold and the temple, and you showed them how to destroy you. And it's not because of you that you're still alive. It's not because of you that you're the king. And so Isaiah says, God says, you're going to fall. Now, this tells you, again, Hezekiah is still full of himself. He said, at least in my days we'll be at peace. This won't happen while I'm alive, will it? It won't happen in the next 15 years. And Isaiah said, no, but you're kind of missing the point. Now, Hezekiah did do one really cool thing that help the people out down the road. Now, they still are going to fall to Babylon. If you didn't know, spoiler alert, that's who conquers Jerusalem and destroys the temple and carries them away. Not just after the time of Hezekiah, but he had a water tunnel built. He built a water tunnel that goes from a spring outside a well that they dug on a spring, about 650 meters outside the wall of Jerusalem, and it actually goes underground. It's an underground water tunnel. We've actually found it. Archaeologists found it and excavated it, and they built it and lined it with stone, and so it fed water inside the wall to the pool of Siloam in Jerusalem. That was Hezekiah's water tunnel. Why is that important? That you lay siege against a city. One of the biggest things is dehydration. You have to have a water supply. Well, this is an underground water supply. They could cut off any creeks or anything else that was coming in, but you would constantly have water coming into the city. And that was a huge, way ahead of his time kind of thing. So Hezekiah did do one cool thing. But here's the lesson as we wrap this up. Here's the thing about Hezekiah. We talk about time will heal, and just give it time and be patient. Time is will take care of things, and that is true. But it's not the time. Time actually does nothing. Time is the great healer. Time heals all wounds. There's all these old phrases. Time does nothing. It's what you do with the time that matters. So as we talk about being patient, and right now, very crazy times in our world, being patient, and every day is different, and time, over time, when will this end? Time. But it's not the time. It's what we do with the time. So people are out working and going and doing. This is a great opportunity in some weird ways to serve other people in different ways. So show them the face of Jesus somehow. Social distancing doesn't mean we're completely distanced, right? It doesn't mean we can't be social. So even though we have to stay 6 feet apart or whatever it is, you can still be social, and you can close that distance somehow with somebody for the cause of Christ. Hezekiah, 2 Kings 20.